Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel are Harvey Diamond and Diane Knight. The secretary to the board today is Louise Boilly, and our assessor is Matthew Harling. We will be hearing applications for revision of the business assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act and the City of Winnipeg Charter. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 6, 7, and 8 on our docket today. Ms. Boilly, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Matthew Harling.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Harling and Mr. Neufeld.
Thanks.
Before we begin, are there any preliminary issues that need to be discussed?
Yeah, I guess I do actually have one for one of the properties. Actually, kind of. I don't know if we consider preliminary issue, but I guess it kind of would be. For the last property in the docket for 100 Packman Road. The assessed value that that was appealed, like the value that there was, long story short, there was a supplementary notice that was sent out about back in February for this particular property. So the value that was appealed technically no longer exists. So it would be superseded by the new value. So
okay, well, let's deal with that when we get to item number 3 instead of dealing with it now.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Okay,
that's fine. Just wanted to give a heads up.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, let's begin with item number 6 on our agenda, 75 Ames Road. Mr. Harling, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 22-4703. The roll year is 2023. The address is 75 Ames Road. The business assessment ID is 5854. And the owners are Wajax Industries Limited. So again, the total assessed value, annual rental value, business assessment annual rental value for the 2023 assessment based on reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $289,860. If you look just below my brief under the subject bid information, you'll see this property again, 75 Ames Road is the address. I've included the wall height and effective rear built. So it's their 22-foot wall heights. 2,000 was the effective rear built of this building. The premise area is 25,645 square feet. We're using a model rent of $9.07 a square foot to give us a base annual rental value of $232,600. If you then look on the occupancy costs, we are assessing heat, electricity, and water for the full area. And then we are only assessing 6,000 square feet for the air conditioning, which gives us a total occupancy cost of $57,237,000. And then this gives us an overall annual rental value of $289,860. Just for some background information, I will note this property was appealed for the realty, where I believe the board made a decision to reduce the assessment. However, we weren't agreeing with that decision, so we have actually filed that to the municipal board for that property going forward. So just to give the board some background and information on this property. If you look below on a brief there into the subject lease information, you'll see the lease in place here for 75 Ames. So it's a long-term lease started in January 1st, 2000, 23-year lease. The reported area they're leasing is 21,720 square feet at a rent of $10.25 a square foot. Now, I will note, just to kind of give a heads up, because this may be a question, there is a discrepancy in our leasable areas. So they're stating 21,720 square feet. We're at 25,645. Basically, what this is there's a second floor mezzanine space that we've included. I don't believe the tenant, they actively, in the lease agreement, they say they're not using the space, obviously, which they showed it in the reported area. Our positioning on it is, though, the space itself can't be leased out to anyone else other than the actual tenant, whoever the tenant is leasing that space, like the main floor space. So they would have active care and control of that space. So while I understand it's not in their lease agreement, the space still has to be accounted for. So that's why we've included the space. So that's our positioning on that. So I'm sure there'll be, I'm sure it won't be agree with that, but that's our positioning on why we have that additional 3,940 square feet of mezz space included. So if we look at the bottom of my brief, some of my rent comparables. So you'll see my rent comparables here in terms of lease start dates. They range from March 1st, 2018 to September 1st, 2019. Lease terms range from 2 to 10 years. Leasable areas range from 16,808 square feet to 32,351 square feet. The reported rents range from $8.25 a square foot to $12. I've also included the wall heights and effective rear builds just to compare. So these range from 12 feet to 24 feet for the wall heights for these comparables, and the effective year builds range from 1961 to 1989. So again, the subject being 2022 feet wall height, I think these comparables would bracket the subject in terms of conditions of the building and age. I will note, though, some of the locations. 75 Ames Road. We'll go to that right now. You should go to page 2 of my brief. You'll see a picture of where this is located. So page 2 just goes to Google Maps. So this is just located actually just close to the south perimeter. You'll see just east of the subject would be St. Anne's Road. So this is obviously not in the, this is still within the city limits, but obviously just on the outskirts, if you will, in a sense. A lot of my comparables, I won't dispute that they are within the city limits, but there's just not a lot of comparables close to the subject. So I did have to bracket or look at some comparables outside the location of the subject. So if we go to page 3, you'll just see a photo of the subject property just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So this is just the picture of the subject property where it's located on Ames. Page 4 of my brief, this is just another photo, just a bit closer in, just to show the building in its entirety. I'm going to page 5 of my brief. This is just unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a more professional or up-to-date floor plan, but this is just the most recent floor plan we have up to date. So this would be the main floor space that we have. Look at page 5. And then in page 6, this would be that second floor mezzanine space I was speaking to previously. So that's where the mezzanine space is there. And then just on page 7 here, this is just an old permit just to show at one point, you can see the 10 area said it was the 25,640. So that's what it was at that point. But again, this is an old permit. So again, just to show that space does exist. So so we're going just back to page 1 then. As I stated, our rent is $9.07 a square foot. I believe it's supported by the rent comparables as well as the rents in place. That concludes my presentation. I ask the board to confirm the value, and I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Firstly, well, this is news to me about a city appeal. We haven't received any notices. What date was that filed?
Well, for which week were we talking about?
You said the city appealed the
Oh,
realty decision.
the realty court. Oh, it's just in the process thing. I don't think it has been submitted quite yet, but it's apparently that's.
It hasn't been submitted?
No, it has, or it has been submitted. It just hasn't been, I guess, filed yet or not. I'm not sure because I was informed by my supervisor that it has been appealed to the municipal board. So
When was that?
I apologize.
When-
I don't have
When
that.
were you informed?
Earlier this week, I mean, it's been filed before. It was filed earlier, but I just was wanting to confirm what was the positioning on this property. So I can give you that information after the hearing. I apologize. I don't have it at the moment.
No, I'd appreciate that. Now, you mentioned that. Now, have you read the lease? I've given it to the city twice now. Have
No,
you read it?
yes, I have actually. I have seen these. Yes.
So they do not have legal care and control of this mezzanine space, do they? Does the lease say anything about them having possession of it?
It doesn't mention that in the lease. No, I won't disagree with that.
Okay, so how does one go about getting an illegal possession of space and be taxed for it when they have a contract that does not allow them to use it?
Well, as I stated, they still have they would have active care and control in the sense that there's no one else, that space can't be leased out to anyone else. So I mean, we have board orders that have supported that position, that we've included space like that where they haven't actually had it in their lease, but that's our positioning on that. So I understand your position, but that's.
Do you have a single document that shows that they actually have permission to enter that space?
I don't have any documentation to state that. No.
Have you been to the site?
No, but I believe we will have to inspect that going forward. I did request inspection, but I think due to time constraints, we weren't able to weren't able to get that settled. So
can you think of a single tenant in our city who's being taxed on space that they do not possess?
I don't have a specific example, but as I stated, we have board decisions that have supported that. So that's all I can say.
I think your board decisions, I think you're mistaken. Don't your board decisions quote that context as an owner who has empty space and has care and control of it?
The one I'm looking at, I don't see it says anything owner in the space, but I apologize. I don't have that information in front of me, so I can't speak to the specifics of that.
Okay, so you have not entered an order as evidence for today?
Correct, I have not. No.
Okay. And you mentioned the board order, and the board order just so it's in my evidence, but it did say that 21,720 square feet was their decision with a rental rate of $7, correct?
As I stated, since we put that to municipal board, but yes, you're right. That was the decision, but we did not agree with it, obviously. So henceforth the felt to mini board.
Okay, so and who didn't agree with it? You or your supervisor?
Well, I believe it was just a decision. The city itself, when we saw the decision, we just didn't agree with the decision, so we just followed.
Were you involved in the decision?
I was not involved in the decision. No.
Okay. So in essence, you're representing somebody else in the city who disagreed with this decision.
Well, I do not agree with it either. So if you want to leave it like that, so.
Okay, you're a middleman then. Is that I take
No,
it?
that is not true. No, so.
But you didn't decide this.
I did not make the decision. No, so.
Okay. Are you aware of the issues surrounding access? You never brought that up in your presentation.
Well, as I mentioned, my comparables, obviously I had to find comparables outside this area because there's not a lot of comparables in the area, but you're right. I am aware of the fact of the access to the, you're right. You have to get off of, you can't get off of a highway.
Well, that they lost their highway access, correct?
Yes, that's
after the lease was written.
That I don't know that specific. I don't know about that now. So
okay, well, when isn't your evidence that the lease was written? I'm just looking at your work. 2000.
January 1st, 2000 is when the lease start date we have.
Yes. Okay, and so you don't dispute that the road was closed in front of them sometime well after that period?
I don't know the specific dates, but I'm aware that there was closed. Yes. So
okay, well, it was in the realty case. Did you read the realty case?
I did. I glanced at it, but I didn't go into depth into it. No. So
okay. And in your reading of the lease, did you note that that the lease was clearly a cost recovery lease and not a rental lease? I believe the language was clear in that. Did you note that?
I noticed they say here the following, I mean, based on that lease agreement, are you talking about the additional cost that they've mentioned?
Yes, that's correct.
As far as I can see, yeah, they say these are essentially improvements that obviously the owner is making, and they're going to be passing along to the tenant for recovery. So these would be just additional costs on top of the base rent. So
Right. Okay. Well, a cost recovery lease. Okay. And do you know what activity is undertaken at the site?
I'm not familiar with, as I said, I haven't inspected the property, so no, I'm not familiar with what the B business does. So
In this particular address, and I think we were corrected several times. It's supposed to be Amy's Road. Melnick is the other road. Any rents from remotely close to that area?
I know Mellick has a rent, but I mean that I think it's more of a car dealership, so I don't think they're really comparable. But other than that, I'm not familiar with a lot of the rents around there. So I was, like I said, I had to expand my search a bit. So
Okay, so nothing from the immediate area then. Thanks.
Correct.
Those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions for the assessor?
So when a building has an area that you're not using or not paying for, is that portion normally behind a locked door or somewhere that you cannot get to, like in a way that you just because you're saying you're not using it, does that mean you really can't walk through it?
well, like I'm just the thing of personal experience from other properties I've dealt with. Like if it's a space that had like, its own access or its own ability to get access to separately and such, then, I believe that would be a good argument saying, okay, well, this could be separated out. But, I feel this is a little different based on the fact of, it's, the space can't be moved around. It's second floor, at least mezzanine space. So that's my argument on that. Why we believe that.
So do you know of other buildings, say is 10,000 square feet, but the client says they're not using 2,000, and so they're only, they want to only pay rent on the 8,000 instead of the 2. I know this one has a lease that says 21 and not 25, but do you know of any situation like that?
Well, I've had other personal experiences where we've had business tenants where we put them in and we've included them in the entire space. Like, maybe this case they didn't have a lease agreement in place, but we would typically put them in for that full space, especially if it's like a mezzanine space, just because they're not using it. I mean, it's part of the care control of the building, so it's really hard to separate out, if you will. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Mr. Diamond, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, do you know if the landlord and tenant are at arm's length?
the lease agreement, you mean, or?
Yeah,
Sir, I assume it is. I apologize. I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe Mr. Neufeld might know better than me, but I apologize. I don't know. So.
okay. And the lease was started in January of 2000, just when the building was built. And has the same tenant been in occupation since then?
Yes, as far as to my knowledge, they've been the same tenant consistently. Yes.
So the lease would just have expired. It'll expire at the end of this month, I guess. It was for 23 years and 3 months. So it'll expire on March 31st, I would assume.
Yeah, there was like this. Unfortunately, we don't have there was a revised lease agreement extension, if you will, that started after the fact. So I don't think I have it in my brief here, but there is an extension that occurred recently on it. So
Okay, there's step ups, or is that the original?
that's the lease that's been in place for that whole time. So
there's no step ups that you're aware of.
not I'm aware of, unless Mr. Neufeld's aware of, but I'm not aware of any based on our mailers that we received. So.
Okay, and if the same tenant's been in occupation for this period of time, is that meaning then that the mezzanine floor has never been used since 2000, like for 23 years?
Well, as I've shown, like actually on the back of my brief, there was a permit taken out back initially where it did show them they took out a permit out here. Actually, I think it was in when there was an additional space they had, and I believe they were using that space at one point. Yes, but I don't know for how long. But I can't speak to the specifics of that. So.
Okay, you indicated the property is remote, but you couldn't find similar properties in the area, so you had to expand your search.
Correct. Yes. Like I said, there's not a lot of leases in that area, obviously. Yes. So.
Okay, I know that the wall height is 22 feet, which is higher than most of your comparables.
The overall, as you can see in the picture there, I think there might be 2 different wall heights. If you can see in the picture there, page 4, it looks like there's 2. Like you can see one building's higher than the back, the portion of the building's higher than the front. So I apologize. I don't know why we haven't broken up. I just don't think, we usually would have it broken down into 2 buildings like that, but I just don't know why we have it. But in our system, we have it at 22 feet is the height we have it at. So.
Okay, and the property is newer than your comparables because it's 2000. Your comparables, the newest is looks like 1989. So
Correct. Yeah, that's like I said. I tried to find comparables as close as I could in terms of size, wall height, age. Again, but these were the ones I found that I felt were comparable in a sense. So, but like I said, I won't dispute these are better locations if you want to state that based on or in actual within the city. But as I stated, I couldn't find a lot of comparables in the area. So,
okay, I have one more question.
Sure.
You have a base rent of 907, and does that mean that as far as the taxing, the assessment order is concerned, the mezzanine is got the same rental rate as the ground floor?
correct. Yes, we have it included as one space overall. Yes, correct.
In most cases, aren't mezzanines rented at a lower price than the prime space?
Yeah, I won't dispute there are situations we have broken it down. Maybe going forward, that might something we might have to do potentially. So, but there are cases, yeah, we have it like that. So it's a case by case basis, I guess. But you're right. I won't dispute there have been situations like that where the mezzanine space would have a lower rate potentially. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. That's all my questions.
Thank you. And I just have a couple questions also. Mr. Harling, would you consider your comparable properties to be of a superior location than Amy's Road?
Like Mr. Neufeld stated, I won't dispute there's some, maybe some access. Some of these would have better access in a sense. In terms of better location, I guess it's really hard. It's, I guess that's really your, personal, everyone what you would think. I mean, I'm not going to pick one specific comparable and say it's the best. I mean, the one on Day Street would be the most similar in terms of like gravel road and kind of idea or whatever to the subject. But yeah, I won't dispute some of these would be, you could argue, better in location. I won't dispute that. So.
Okay. And I note that of these locations, all but 2 have, and I'm assuming this is a base rent figure, lower rents than your Amy's Road location.
Yes, some of them, yeah, there is like, I won't really dispute they bracket it, but again, my thought would, or my looking at that, like based on the fact of like the wall heights and the effect of your builds, those would be factors that would affect those rents as well.
Okay.
Those would be my process of thoughts on that. So.
Okay. Okay, I have no additional questions. So, Mr. Neufeld, do you have, or you can proceed with your presentation, please.
Yeah, I just had a redirect. It was on a question Mr. Diamond had asked about wall heights, and I just noted something here, 1530 Gamble. What is that the Sony building or the Brewers Distributing building?
I'd have to take a look here. Give me a second here. Let's see if I can pull that up here for you. 1530 Gamble. This is. No, I think there will. This is a like I've actually been in this building before. As a matter of fact, it's a very large building. It's got a lot of tenants in it. So it's off of Hamel Street, just off of close to McGilcrease Boulevard. So there's not really one tenant in there. So it's not the Sony building though, for sure. So
all right. Now I was looking at the city records. They're showing it's 27 feet. How do you get 12 feet?
I think there's a portion, like I said, there's multiple tenants in there, and there is a space, I think, a lower wall height. Now it's not the whole building, so that's just that one particular space. So
who is the tenant in that? Is that an office user or an industrial user?
I don't have to, I'll be honest with you, I don't have that at the top of my I'm assuming office potentially, but I can't say that for certain. So
okay,
that may be a typo. Maybe maybe it is a higher wall height. There could have been.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because I noticed another one, 2475 Day. Your city records actually say it's 31 feet.
Just check that one.
I know we came in up against this before from an earlier assessor's testimony.
Let me just. Because I can check here quickly here. There's actually multiple building wall heights in this building. So yeah, they range from 8 to 31 feet. Yes, you're correct.
So 31 feet, and that is a single tenant in there, correct?
Yes, but Well, let me double check here. I believe it is single tenant, yes.
Yeah, so that should then possibly be stated 14,231 feet. Does that be fair?
Well, yeah, and I won't dispute this is a superior rent as well. Yes, you're right, correct, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, that was all my redirect.
Okay, then you may proceed with your presentation, Mr. New.
First and foremost, I would like to point out that I am not a lawyer, but I believe that this is an error in law to assess a business tax on space not occupied legally by a tenant, an arm's length tenant. That's like saying if there's a space in Polo Park that's empty and the guy next to it puts a sign in front of it, well, he must be using it. Let's tax him for it. It's not legally theirs. Now, the history behind it is perhaps will illuminate the issues. This was not built for its current use. This was originally a contractor's establishment. And after they departed, Wajax came in, and Wajax are essentially deal with power systems, hydraulic systems. And they have 3 locations in the city. This one serves the farming community for hydraulics. And the building didn't suit them, so the owner in the year 2000 demolished the rear and built a higher warehouse. And that was the change. So the rear was demolished and then rebuilt higher for Wajax use. The lease that was done in place was a recovery lease, not a rental lease, because Wajax agreed to pay the cost of the reconstruction amortized over a 20-year life. So that's why we're not relying on the lease number, because it's repayment. And I think I heard a comment about it being expired. Yes, it expires in a few days, and it is being renewed. The assessor should know it's separate ownership, because at Board of Revision, the owner filed his own appeal. And it was determined that the tenant, after renewing, would have priority rights. Now, the space on the mezzanine level is empty. I've been there, I've inspected it. It's empty. It's not in use. It's obsolete space. So in the year 2000, when Wajax made the change, the cost issue was, what do we do with this space? It really wasn't cost effective to demolish the space, so they just left it and ignored it. It's obsolete. It's like having a closet that you don't need anymore. They do not have care and control over it in any legal sense whatsoever. It has never been demised. It was never intended on being demised. It's obsolete space. And the lease reflects it. So we have a legal document that says what is actually being leased. And it was an interesting point about, do we have other spaces where someone chooses not to use it? No, we do not on a tenant relationship. Actually, there are several on an ownership relationship, and I'm going to ask you to pay attention to 100 Paquin when it comes up, which is our third property. 100 Paquin is owner occupied, and the space of 70,000 square feet was made by me taking an assessor out to the site, and they had a line drawn around a big space and said, this is what we're using, and the assessor agreed, and the rest is empty and not being assessed. Happens all the time. So I'm rather surprised at the assessor's position on this, which completely disagrees with other issues, other times this has come up. And this being a pure tenant relationship, there's no legal right to use the space. Now, when we looked at the other issue with the site is that when the negotiations were made, the site had in-out east-west access from the perimeter highway. And that was in 2000. Now, the actual date when what happened is that the province chose to close all access points on the perimeter highway, and you know, it was for safety, so it happens. That's not, you know, That's just a fact of life, but it does impact the people who have the access. As I said earlier, they deal with farm users. So we're not, and so what they're dealing with is always large vehicles, not trucks, pickup trucks, not cars. The access to it was cut, and I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the date here. This was submitted in evidence. I had overhead shots of it. I'm sorry. I believe it was around 2017 that access was cut. And the plan was to have a service road on Amy's Melnick, and that and until a few months ago, the only access was from La Jamodier. So you had to do an in-out on the north side of the bridge in La Jamodier to come down Melnick, which transitioned to Amy's, and then it dead-ended at the creek. At the well, I guess it's a river, Seine River, and I was down there last week, and the bridge has finally been completed. So now they have the service road circles around and goes to an uncontrolled intersection on St. Anne's Road in front of 90 Creek Bend. So this is how you get to the site with your tractor and trailer, is through two service roads at two uncontrolled intersections that are not semi-trailer accessible, rather than the previous one, which was semi-trailer accessible. And it's fair. It was done in the interest of safety, so you can't complain about it, but you do devalue a property. So the question we put to the board was, what would somebody pay for rent now that you've lost your access for your semi-trailers? And we had a number of rents at $7 at the high end of the range, which we submitted to the board. The board chose to follow that, and those rents incidentally are the same ones on page 4 and 5. And as much like the assessor's issue, there are no rents on in this part of town. This was originally zoned MR, which is rural industrial, and it was where all the noxious uses were forced to go to for zoning. So this is where you would have fuel distribution stations, fertilizer storage, etc. But since the gentrification of the area nearby, that MR has been canceled and now replaced with, I think it's an M2 designation. So the previous noxious users can stay, but it has been gentrified. But that's the genesis of it. And this area was mostly an owner-occupied location. There were some land rental rates nearby for compounds, but essentially it's all owner-occupied. So it has been transitioned out of economic viability by the closure of the road, and the upper level has been transitioned out of economic viability because really, the common sense, a mezzanine rental on the perimeter highway, there are absolutely no users for it. You could demise it and try to put it up for rent. The owner has the right, and there is no interest because it's just obsolete space. So the board made a good decision, in my opinion, on the space. What they did is, you'll note on my page 3 is we had actually thought that put a higher cap rate on because the future wasn't that great. And what they chose to do is say, well, we think the rent is fair, but we're going with a lower cap. And that's a balance act, because in real estate valuation, you don't get a low rent and a high cap. If your rent's low, that means there could be an upside in the future and your cap is low. So that's the way they decided it. So the city has a very short-sighted position on it, but they do these section by section and think that there should be that everything can be parceled out differently. I don't disagree with this decision. It could have been a higher rent and a higher cap, and the board called it this way with a lower rent and a lower cap. which was, I think, a fair call. We did not appeal this decision. And it has nothing to do with the value obtained. I look at the methodology. Is this appropriate methodology? And it is. You can't tax, rent, use dead space. It's like saying to somebody, well, you know, that closet I got in the back of my house, that's worth something. I could rent it to somebody. No, you don't. No, it isn't. No one's out there to rent it. That's essentially what we're dealing with here. So that is our presentation, follow through. And as far as whether the city appealed it or not, you know, that's administrative nonsense. And I mean nonsense in a basis of is it shouldn't even be brought to this board. We don't care what the city says. You don't care if I appeal it. You don't care if the city appeals it. What you're dealing with is look at the previous decisions, look at the values, and the rest of it will get sorted out if somebody wants to later. But what's been put in front of you is non-use of space and a rent that has already gone through it and is well supported by the numbers, by the location, by the loss of access, and the other issues. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Harling, do you have any questions?
I just have one question. So, Mr. Neufeld, are you stating that rent that they're paying is not, is that the rent that they're paying, the base rent, the $10.25 a square foot though?
It's not rent, it's cost recovery.
Well, where did you say that cost recovery?
In the lease I sent you. In addition, I interview people. I interviewed the tenant and their real estate director, because that's called due diligence. It's not reading an income and expense form. It's actually going out and asking the question. So we and Wajax, of course, are a national client of ours. So we do have a contact. Geez, I forgot his name. We get to interview the participants on the transaction. They paid for construction. It's a loan, not a rent.
Well, they say here base rent, and then these recoveries that you're speaking to, they say they're just going to be recovering them and passing them along to the tenant. So I don't agree with that, but okay, we'll just leave it at that. So.
Well, you don't agree with it, but did you go out and check yourself? No, you didn't.
I did try to request inspection, but unfortunately we weren't.
Well, other than inspection, interview the people involved in the transaction.
Well,
no. So we did.
Well, it's your opinion. So.
Thank you. Mr. Harling, any additional questions?
No, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Diamond, do you have any questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Harling, would you like a summation?
No, I think the board knows my position, so I think I'll just leave it at that. So.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, in summation, the evidence I have submitted, and I did forget to touch on this in the presentation, but I'm just recapping what's been said. We did at the previous hearing point out locations in St. Boniface, not in the St. Boniface Industrial Park, but around St. Boniface on Dugald, 24,000 square feet at $3.95. I've inspected the building, very similar building, but a better location and a bit older. And the other one we brought up was on 630 Mission, which is Old St. Boniface, larger building, lower rent at $3.50. So this is representative of not a modern industrial use. This is off the beaten path. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. That concludes item number 6 on our agenda. We'll move to item number 7 on our agenda, 13 Terracon Place. Mr. Harling, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 22-4479. The roll year is 2023. The address is 13 Terracon Place. The business assessment ID is 35017. And the owners are Price Industries Limited. The total annual rent value for the 2023 assessment based on a reference date of April 1st, 2021 is $159,780. If you look under our subject bid heading, you'll see again the property at 13 Terracon Place. I've included the wall height factory builds, 20-foot wall height for the building, 1991 it was a factory built. The premise area is 15,000 square feet. The base annual rent value, based on a model rent of $8.45 a square foot, is $126,750. You're assessing heat, electricity, and water for the full occupancy area or leasable area, and then 2,250 square feet for air conditioning. This gives us an occupancy cost of $33,038. And this gives us an overall annual rent value of $159,780. Under the below, you'll see this is not owner occupied property. I apologize, I didn't put the lease agreement in. Mr. Neufeld did contact me the other day and I double checked, and there is a lease agreement in this. It is, I believe it's roughly $6.95 a square foot. So I am aware of that. So I just want to appreciate for pointing that out. So it is lower than our model rent, but again, our model rents are based on market. So we're just going to be looking at the comparables to support our model rent. So just looking at our rent comparables, so they range from 12,000 to 21,000 square feet. The rents range from $8.20 a square foot to $11. The wall heights range from 19 feet to 26 feet. And then the effective rebuilds range from 1997 to 2000. So looking at some of the locations, so the first one is actually in 2 Terracon Place. This is actually in the same location as the subject property. Slightly smaller size. It is slightly newer, slightly taller wall height, $8.20 a square foot. 45 Began, this is around St. Bob's Industrial Park. Again, slightly smaller, 12,303 square feet, $9 rent. 24-foot wall heights, slightly higher wall heights, very comparable age. 427 McPhillips Street, this one I won't dispute, is this is not close to the subject. This is like close to the McPhillips Street casino area. It is larger at 16,899 square feet and $11 rent. It is older and 19-foot wall heights, but it does have a bit of a retail component, so I won't dispute that would have a higher rent based on that reasoning. 275 Debates, this is close to the subject at St. Bob's Industrial Park, 7-year lease, slightly larger at 17,326 square feet, $8.70 rent square foot. It is better wall heights and it is slightly newer, so I won't dispute that. And then the last comparable is just 75 Terracon. This is also in the same location area, slightly larger at 21,000 square feet, $7.95 rent. Comparable wall height, 22 feet, 1997, so comparable in that sense. This one's at $7.95 a rent. So these are the comparables I've selected, and I believe they support our rent, our market rent, our model. Going to page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a picture of where the subject property is located on Dougal Road. Just below that, I just showed a picture of the building itself. So this is the building. As you can see, there's multiple addresses in here. It's a flex warehouse building, so there are multiple tenants in here. I haven't been in this building since the tenant moved in. I have been in this space previously from another tenant that was in, but I haven't been in there recently. So, but I am aware of the building. If we go to page 4, you'll just see another photo of the building, just without all the addresses. And then lastly, page 5 here, you'll just see this is the Terracon Park itself, just all the different buildings of the Terracon Park. Some of those comparables would be, I mentioned, we're just adjacent to the subject east of the building. So the buildings are very similar, so they'd be very comparable. And then just lastly on page 6, this is just a floor plan I just had of the space. So it's broken down to office space in the front, and then there's some warehouse space in the back. So again, being a flex warehouse. That concludes my presentation. I ask the board confirm value, and I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes. So clarify, you did look up the lease, 695. What was the start date?
I believe it is February 19. I don't know the exact date. I apologize. I know it was in February of 19. I'm pretty sure. So.
Okay. And term? Do you have that?
I think it's a 10-year lease.
Okay. Okay.
Or maybe quite least around that range. I think. I apologize. I don't have the exact. August 31st, 2030 is what we have it at.
Okay. And you mentioned that it's Price Industries.
Correct.
And what do they do on the site?
That specific site, I apologize. I didn't inspect it. That specific what they're used. I know what Price Industries. I just can't remember what they do in that space. I apologize. So. Okay.
And it's in Terracon Industrial Park. Roughly how large is that? Do you know?
The park itself, it's quite large. I mean, got to be over 100,000 square feet, I'd assume, somewhere in that range. I apologize, I don't have the exact numbers on me. But
Yeah, okay. Are you aware of the manner in which it's being assessed on the realty side?
yes, I am. It's a very this business park is very unique. Obviously, I'm sure as you're aware yourself, and it's the way how do I put this? Yeah, it's very unique in the way it's hard to assess because there's a lot of buildings, there's a lot of different income streams.
But essentially, what I'm getting at is it's a 40-acre site, and going back to 2002, it's been assessed on the basis of the owner paying for infrastructure costs that the city would normally pay for, and therefore the tax rate value has been adjusted. Correct?
They do pay for their own infrastructures, in that correct? Yes, you're right. You're correct. Yes.
And because they're on this different system, so in that respect, would not that same manner of valuation have to be considered in rental of space? Like, don't they have then different recoveries?
They do have yes, there would be some difference in recoveries, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, we're just talking about the rent here, but I understand what you're saying. There would be some variations in the recoveries and how they would do things. Yes, I won't dispute that.
And the buildings, I'm looking at their rent roll, but I believe there's 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 buildings. They're all fairly much designed the same way, correct?
They're very comparable in the sense of the when they were built, wall heights, age, buildings, layout, such. Yes.
And I just want to confirm the physical nature of these buildings. You can confirm that they were all built. You may not know this. They were built from the same plan, but can you confirm that they're all built with 3,000-foot centers, 3,000-foot bays? I'm sorry, 30 by 100-foot bays.
I can't speak to that specific. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that I don't know the information regarding that, but I'm assuming you would know, obviously. So yeah.
Okay, that's fine. If you don't know it, that's fine. And this is, an industrial building. Is that correct?
Yeah, or a flex warehouse building where it's got the office and warehouse space. Yes.
Now, the leases you've supplied here, do you know if these people are utilizing it for office or for industrial?
I know. I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm not sure. I'm aware of Debate Street. That one I know is a similar flex warehouse building.
No, I meant the ones you provided in Terracon Place.
That I don't have that information. I apologize now. So,
but there are office users in Terracon Place, correct?
There are some office spaces, yes. Majority of them, I believe but there's a combination of office and the flex. Yes. So,
you have no doubt, you don't know what the subject does in their site. So if you're calling it warehouse, you're calling it industrial, you're calling it office, do you know?
Well, as I shown on the back of page 6, I briefed the floor plan. Like I said, I haven't been to it, but they have it broken down into a portion of office space at the front, and then they have the warehouse space in the back. So, okay,
so office and warehouse.
Yes.
Do you know the name of the users in 2 Terracon and 75 Terracon?
Let me see here. I could find that out. I just don't have it with me, unless you maybe have it with you, maybe, I guess, or I just don't have it with me. I apologize. No, I don't.
Well, I have 75 Terracon as computers for school. That's still one place?
I believe we still have as one space, yes.
Okay. And 2, I have an old lease here, phase on. Is that still in effect because that expired?
That one, I believe we still have it in there. But I'm aware of that business. Yeah, phase on. I remember seeing that before. So I know we still have them in as that space. Yes. So
the building that 2 is in also contains 24 and 28, correct?
That's part of the same building. Yes.
And you're aware that is an office use building?
Entirely office space. No, I am not aware of the space. I haven't inspected that particular space.
Okay. So. All right. What would be, now you mentioned earlier that you brought forward the lease at 695, but your reason for not applying it, what was that again? I missed that.
Well, again, we're relying on our model rent. Our model rents are based on market rents. So we feel, I understand that's the lease in place, but we feel based on our you know, again, when we look at the mailers, we look at other rents and we feel that our rent we supported, we think it's more at market, our rent, I guess, if you will. So
Did this property go to a realty appeal?
there was a real, I don't believe it did go to realty. Well, I believe there was a realty appeal, but I believe it was settled otherwise. So I don't know the
And
specifics of it.
did the city accept the rent of $695 on 13 Terracon?
I don't know, unfortunately, about that information. So
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, do you have any questions?
No, but thank you.
Thank you, and I have no questions either. So, Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, you may begin your presentation, please.
Okay, sorry, I lost it. I had this all sorted out here. BT 2023 briefs for industrial Terracon. So I found it at the time of writing. I hadn't confirmed the rent. I've done a fair amount of work for Terracon, and I had an old number of $7. I was not aware it was $6.95, and I think for 5 cents we're not inclined to make a major change for 5 cents, but the actual rent is $6.95. I was able to confirm that yesterday with Terracon. The 15,000 square feet. Now, in terms of the air conditioned area, which is always in debate, I got a number from initial plans, and this is dating back to an inspection we did going back to 2016. And it appears to me our number is probably incorrect based on the assessor's notes, and we would change that to state. And I'm just looking at his plans here. Sorry, I never asked him if he had an air conditioned breakout here or looked at it. He's got 2250 as well. You know, that's probably in error. It is larger than that, but we're both using the same area. And considering we put in a higher rent at $7, perhaps in the interest of fairness, the two will probably wash out, lower rent and higher air conditioned area. Terracon Place is they essentially, they've got 3 major sites. One, two in St. Boniface and one on Kenaston, and essentially they use the same architect on both. It does save some money, and their product is the same. It's 3,000 square foot bays, 30 by 100. The idea is 30-foot centers, 100-foot depth, designed for flex, as the assessor said, but it's also designed predominantly for industrial warehouse using, because the 30-foot centers and accommodate semi-trailer access. Semi-trailers at the rear, cars in the front, and if a tenant wants to have an office, that's his own business. Terracon typically does not spend money on TIs to finish out space for people. They tend to just lease the shell, and but they do have some tenants with TIs, and again, that's their business, not mine. I spoke with them yesterday on the matter and confirmed that they do. There are TI impacted rents in the building. Regardless of that, the best evidence of a business tax is the rent itself, and I confirmed that the negotiations were arm's length, that the space, that the parties were both acting in their own best interests, and there was nothing significant in the lease. It was a larger space with an industrial, predominantly industrial usage on it. Price is Price Industries, so they make heating ventilation equipment. Their main campus is on Golspie and Raleigh. That's where they do their manufacturing. This site is part storage. I was not in this one, but I was in. They moved across the street. I was in the other building, and essentially it was a big warehouse filled full of duct ducts, D-U-C-T-S, not quacky ducks, but ducts. And this is what it is. So I think that regardless of what the assessor's position is, in the long run, no matter where this ends up, and I have to watch myself here, I'm not trying to say anything negative whatsoever. This will end up at the paid rent, no matter what level it goes at. And I think in most cases, the assessor would have reached out and probably offered a deal. Don't know why not, but we're going through the systems, and whether we do it, however it ends up, it will end up at paid rent, because that's the nature of business tax. That's the default. $6.95 a square foot. I think we put in some market rent here. I just want to go back to my, this would be a superior industrial, and we don't track a lot of them because most have been built out for office. I do recall we had one on King Edward here somewhere at $6.95, which I thought was probably appropriate. Oh, here we go. On my page 4, and these are, you could say, a better part of town. 1503 St. James at $6.90, and 1555 St. James, that's Westro Center, and it has an industrial component and an office component. So these are the industrial components, and 550 on that one, 550. That's probably the best example of a similar building. All the location varies a bit from the subject. And I'm sorry, I was just looking for another one on King Edward. It's dated, and that's probably why it slipped out of our survey at $6.95. That would be for good quality industrial. Sorry, now I was looking at my page 3, and I noted number 8 on Paramount is a similar building. Number 9 on Dublin, no, that's not a similar building, but the one below it on Paramount is a similar building. 1555 St. James, I mentioned, is similar. Oh, there we go. 1695 Sargent. That was the one I was looking for. It's an older lease. This is actually a jobber's outfit. This is Home Depot's depot for jobbers. For if you're a professional, you would go there for parts instead of going to the store. And those are our comps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Harling, do you have any questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Diamond, do you have any questions?
So, Mr. Neufeld, you're basically basing your position on the fact that there's a lease in place at $6.95, and you feel that that's what should be utilized in determining the fair rental value, not the model?
That's correct, and it's fairly recent. It predates COVID, so we'd always thought that would there be an influence or not from COVID. Hadn't decided that, and I'm not trying to sidetrack your question. It was our thought process on that was basically there have been so few transactions in the last 2 years. We're all forced to look at 18 and 19 numbers, and it was a good deal. We interviewed both parties. Nothing it meets the definition of market.
Well, picking up COVID, I think that actually made warehouse space more desirable because more people are ordering online, and companies need bigger warehouses with which to fill those orders.
Yeah, you're repeating what I said earlier, and maybe you remember, but yeah, that's true in terms of large warehouse. So what we're talking about there is Centerport, where they built these large distribution warehouses, semi-trailers in front, and then distribution. This is too small to be a real distribution center for that. This was Terracon wasn't targeted in that manner. It's flex. The other COVID spaces that got rent up were larger sites by the province on short terms for storage of equipment. I agree that but look at the sites that have gone up due to COVID. Amazon on Plymouth, 100,000 feet. Amazon on Regent, 120,000 feet. Not 15,000 feet in Terracon Place.
Okay, that's fair. I guess the only thing I want to just emphasize the fact that you are taking the position on this one that we should be using the rent in place. And I'm assuming then that any of your other matters, you would take a similar position, and you have a rent in place. You wouldn't want us to deviate from that.
Well, you know, the concept of the rent in place isn't based on the paper. It's based on an investigation and determination if it meets the standards of market value. This one, as with the other one, we had the opportunity to interview the tenant and the landlord. It was a clean deal. There was nothing that impacted it. The last one we spoke of, it was a cost recovery deal, and we confirmed it failed to meet the standard of market value, which what's this called? Creative financing on the prior one. So,
Commissioner Neufeld, thank you. That completes my questions.
okay.
Thank you. I have no additional questions. I'd just like to recess for 10 minutes, if that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
So let's resume at 10:15.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We are now on item number 8 of our agenda, 100 Paquin Road. Mr. Harling, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 22-4852. The roll year is 2023. The address is 100 Paquin Road. The business citizen ID is 50321. The business name and business owners are Sky Blue Water and Sky Blue Water Incorporated. The 2023 assessed value based on Urban State April 1st, 21 is $491,400. Yeah, so we just go to the premise for the firm 100 Paquin Road to see some of the pertinent information. 20-foot wall heights, 1997 year builds, 70,000 square feet of area, base rent of 487, which gives us a total base rent of 349,900. We are assessing area for the electricity, water, and heat for the total area, and no area for air conditioning, which gives the occupancy cost of $150,500, and we did that together gives us an overall value of $491,400. If you just look below my brief, you'll see some rent comparables. I believe we support the rent, and just on pages on 2 through 4, just some photos of the subject property. So that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld.
Sorry, I do have a question or two, just to clarify matters.
Sure.
What was the value under appeal?
$491,400.
And in your evidence, you're presenting that it is actually $722,400. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is based on the supplementary. That's based on a supplementary notice based on a building addition that was added to the building. If you look on page 6 of my brief.
Right. So just be clear, you're defending the supplemental, but the one under appeal was the original, correct?
Yes, I've shown the supplementary notice. I've shown the supplemental value just to show that's what the current value is going forward. But yes, the appeal was for the $491,400.
But you're not addressing the 70,000 square feet here.
No, that's the one I'm speaking to. That's the one I did speak to, the 70,000 square feet.
You're adding the 27,500, correct?
That is the additional area that was added for the supplementary notice.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that what was appealed was the normal notice, but you're defending the supplemental. My next question was actually something that came up earlier. The building 100 Paquin, what's the floor area? Do you have that handy?
We have the main floor is 105,023, and the second is 11,020, I believe, based on the floor plan I have here.
So about 116,000 square feet, and this premise occupies 70,000 of that, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that this is the owner's own space, the 70,000?
I believe this is owner occupied, correct, yes.
And you're aware the rest of the building is vacant?
I have not inspected it, but yes, I'll have to take a word for that, and that's yes.
And how was the area determined 70,000 feet? Do you know?
We haven't, as like, well, I said, I believe we got it from the floor plans, so I don't have that. All the information I have is just on page 6 of the building there. That's all I have, so.
But isn't that 100,000 square feet all open area?
As I said, I haven't inspected it, but that's based on your knowledge. If that's the case, yes, I'll agree with that, so.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Diamond?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight?
So I'm a little confused. So is the value we're talking about today just the 491,400, or are we including the 27.5, or is the 27.5 part of the supplemental?
The 27.5 is part of the supplemental, yes.
So today's value is 491,400.
That was what was the PO that was filed under, yes.
Okay.
Or, yes.
So if it's confirmed at 491,400
Yes.
on 70,000 square feet.
Yes, it would be for just that one space. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I have no questions. Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, thank you. I just have a few things to say. Firstly, we're going to be asking for confirmation on this, but for the record, the area of 70,000 square feet is in an open area of 100,000 square feet. This area was determined by meeting with the assessor and putting a piece of tape on the floor. That was acceptable. Now, one could argue the owner had care and control over the rest of the space, but in this particular instance, the tape on the floor was adequate for them. And I really am only bringing this up because the previous one in 75 Ames that you know, we have different reasons for different defenses of the assessment. And this is just another example of the inconsistency in the assessment department. The other thing I do want to say for the record is, as we spoke, an appeal of the supplemental was filed prior to the closing of this hearing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neufeld. All right, then. With that, we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Harling and Mr. Neufeld.
Thanks.
You.